Dozens of prominent CEOs and business leaders gathering this weekend online to discuss a response to voting laws being debated in states across the country after legislation passed in Georgia set off a firestorm of debate with big business caught squarely in the middle. Joining us right now is one of the people who organized that call, Jeff Sonnenfeld, Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies at Yale Schools of Management and a CNBC contributor. Jeff, it's great to see you, and I appreciate you taking on this important issue. But I'm hoping you can talk to the viewers this morning, especially those CEOs who were not, for example, on your call, and get at this issue of, I know you believe this is a nonpartisan issue, but part of this discussion, frankly, is about the 43 states that are pursuing laws, virtually all, when I say virtually, I should say all, by Republicans. And I think that for a lot of viewers, especially who are Republicans, they have concerns about this being a partisan issue.
It's well, it's not a partisan issue. It's an issue of democracy. Is not a left or right or Democrat or Republican issue, and democracy versus denial of voice. And that's what the CEOs are telling us. The Morning Consult data, which we had originally commissioned for this, that was overnight callings from around the country, interviews, showed overwhelming majorities of Republicans concerned about denial of voter access in this legislation, as well as Democrats. And Andrew, I'm sorry to say that the Brennan Center for Justice, who was at our event, Michael Waldman, the head of it, pointed out that it's actually up to 47 states with 331 initiatives. And overwhelmingly, our CEOs, as well as the American public, reads these voter restrictions as voter suppression.
And so what do you believe the role of business should be in this context? Because as you know, and we've talked about it for many years, business tried to stay out of all of these types of issues. You had Mitch McConnell effectively say to the CEO community, stay out of this.
Yeah, and this is a strong bark back from the business community. You talk about taxation with representation. They don't mind taking the business leaders' money, but they don't want their voice. These people are saying quite strongly, this is a defiance of that statement, a collective defiance. They don't all agree with each other, by the way. As you know, the group was 65, 70% Republican, these business leaders that were there, but they don't like being told to give us your money and shut up. They have voice, and it matters, and the American public wants to hear it. As we know, if you take out the military, which is not allowed to speak, tragically, it's not your line of work or my line of work, academia or media, or certainly not elected officials at state or local levels or federal levels, or the clergy that are the most trusted pillars of American society. Right now, it's business leaders. It wasn't in 2007, sadly, as we know, but it is now. And they're stepping up to the plate. They hear that. And speaking up to the plate, we're taking a look, of course, even at the major league teams. We talked about that. We had Arthur Blank with us there as co-founder of the Home Depot, talking about how the NFL has been watching what Major League Baseball is doing, trying to understand what players tell them where they don't feel comfortable. That has a loud ripple effect. So these CEOs are talking about a whole host of options. Some are interested in the federal legislation to have blue states and red states held to the same playing field, the same ground rules. Others are talking about where they put their money, whether or not it has to do with cutting.
How skeptical, though, should viewers and the public be about the role of business in this? And I ask for the following reason. It's one thing to put your name next to a statement, right? And there's a lot of people who've been willing to sign lots of statements. It's another thing to actually do something with your operations and with your money. And there were a number of companies after the insurrection that took place on January 6th who said they were not going to continue funding through PACs and otherwise some of the politicians who were involved with supporting what has now been called the big lie. And yet some of those same companies have since gone back on that promise and have continued to support with their money some of those same politicians. You're already seeing it. We had, after the murder of Khashoggi, you had a group of CEOs say, well, we're not going to go to Saudi Arabia. 2 years later, we're going to go to Saudi Arabia. So how much does it really matter?
You initiated that blowback, that backlash against the Davos in the desert, Andrew. You deserve a lot of credit for that. And the backsliding, I think, was disappointing in that matter. In this matter, I've looked pretty closely at it. The CEOs who were coming to our early crisis calls, our pop-up conferences, if you will, were 40 at a time, were the major CEOs. They were saying universally, in fact, unanimously, they were going to curtail their spending and campaign spending. But they were self-selected group. You take a look at the conference board surveys of the larger group, it was half. And that's still the right number, half of them still holding up. And in terms of people looking at the actual payment, it's time lag data. They haven't seen what's going to be spent for 2022. They're still looking at the old data. So I think a fair number of that will hold. If you look at the surveys now, it's still 70, it's only fallen by about maybe not even a quarter that are still holding their ground on curtailing their payments. And we're seeing actual companies that have put on hold large investments of moving plant, equipment, and personnel into some of these states in question where their employees don't feel comfortable. This has already happened. You also see people like Brad Karp, to name a name, the managing partner of Paul Weiss, bonding together 60 of the nation's top 100 law firms. And I think you'll have all top 100 probably soon. But we're ready right now, today, to dispatch SWAT teams to go to these 47 states with election law experts to help battle back any of these restrictions. It's the CEOs aren't doing this for grandiosity. You're right. They hate playing politician. They don't want to get involved. There's no middle ground anymore. Their silence means acquiescence. It means agreement, and they don't want that. So what they want to do is they want a harmonious society. They don't like politicians using these wedge issues for self-gain. They want people to not have finger-pointing workforces. They don't want angry communities. They don't want hostile shareholders. This is a win-win.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.